It was somewhere during the mid-2010s that being a nerd started to become socially acceptable. Nowadays, from what I understand, you can pretty much talk about most things openly. Do you play Fortnite? Yeah, of course I do, man. Did you catch that new episode of Demon Slayer? Man, that was hype. Yeah, it definitely wasn't like that for me. You kept that stuff hidden. Did you watch Attack on Titan? I don't even know what an anomoi is. Did you play the new Zelda game? What's a Zelda? That's pretty much how it went. I did see some progress while I was still in high school though, and the biggest hint to me was when a kid brought an anime body pillow to the senior prom. He did it proudly and confidently. You better believe people thought it was weird, but I honestly don't remember anybody actually outright making fun of him for it. Even though it was a bit ridiculous to feel bad about the things you liked back then, I still look back on that time fondly. The early to mid 2010s were a sort of golden age for nerd culture. Call of Duty was peak. Not only did the geeky people play it, but so did the jocks. Pokemon had made a small comeback for a brief moment, the Marvel Cinematic Universe had just gotten on its feet, and YouTube had started to become a completely viable method of entertainment. And on YouTube, there is one standout show that not only encompasses that era perfectly, but defines it. Video Game High School. VGHS literally was that era of high school for me. It started when I was a freshman and ended during my junior year. Watching it now feels like I'm watching a time capsule from my high school days. Obviously it's exaggerated and fantastical being a school for video games, but the humor, drama, and life lessons are all things that I understood back then and are nostalgic to me now. First-person shooters were king of the gaming world. The teenage awkwardness is believable. The fact that each person is vastly different from and goes through many different things than the other is real. Mix all that in a Blendtec blender and you not only have the web series Video Game High School, but you have what it felt like for me going to high school. Breathe it in. Do you wanna hear about how the real world's a place for me? Video Game High School is incredible, making an intriguing story with compelling characters all while making stupid video game references is no easy feat. Yet Rocket Jump did it, and they did it exceptionally well.
Start the engine.
Sir, I can't solve this equation! Do you know the variable?
I don't, but maybe you do.
Okay, gang. Master Chief can't fix his warthog until we find the correct equation.
I want to talk about some of the characters as well as the plot now. If you don't want spoilers, then this is your warning. But let's be honest, you clicked on this video, so you probably have already seen it. And it's 10 years old, so I don't even know if this warning was necessary. Feel old yet? Rocket Jump made a completely unrealistic setting and filled it with a wholly realistic cast. There is so much to relate to for anyone and everyone in their high school years, from gaining your independence from your parents, living through the awkwardness of your first love, dealing with the fact that sometimes your parents aren't perfect, and finding your place in the world as well as your place with your friends. These are just some of the conflicts that the cast faces, and they are all things that most people face in high school. And guess what? It doesn't stop after you graduate. Video Game High School is all about the games, but really, just like real life, it's all about growing up. VGHS has 4, let's call them playable characters: Ted Wong, Key Swan, Jenny Matrix, and Brian D. Brian is definitely the main character, but each of them has their own relatable arcs they go through alongside Brian. There are plenty of other characters too that also have their own arcs, not just these main 4, but I only want to focus on these 4 for now. Key is a very sheltered person, the kind of person that I would have assumed while I was in high school was homeschooled. No disrespect to all the people who were homeschooled or went to private school, but while they more often than not became smarter than the kids in public school, they tended to lack something when it came to social interactions. At least the kids I knew. Anyway, Key's character goes much farther than something as simple as not understanding social cues. In fact, I'd say for the most part that she has decent social skills. Her biggest issue through the show is not understanding herself. In my opinion, one of the best ways to figure out yourself is to simply live your life. And it's hard to do that when things are preventing you from experiencing life in general. Partly due to growing up in her sheltered environment, she doesn't really have any direction. Some things come easy for her while others don't. She doesn't hate the things she does, but she also doesn't really like them. In the show, she jumps from game to game, hobby to hobby, and quest to quest. She's always trying to solve problems, which is part of what led her to the realization that she just wants to help people. When she loses the opportunity to help people, she falls into a depressed state. Making someone happy pulls her out of it, and when she's renewed, she continues helping people as much as she can. She is a people pleaser, and while that can get her into trouble, she is able to make the most of it once she figures out her meaning in life. Brian is honestly a lot like Key in many ways. He wants to please everyone and help in whatever way he can. He also wants what he wants.
Yowza! I don't know what's got into Brian D, but Scotty wants some of that in pill form.
He may have lucked into VGHS, but after getting there, he hit the ground running. He fights his way into the FBS team, he chases after the girl of his dreams, and he works hard to keep everything that has made his life better than it's ever been. And when he loses them all, none hit harder than when he loses the friends he made. VGHS ends with Brian hanging out with Ted and Key while rooting for Jenny on the sidelines. It's not Brian playing for some professional FBS team, it's him being with the people he cares about. He goes through so much of the course of the show, and I love how well he is both portrayed and written. There is a moment in season 2 where, in an interesting case of selfishness, he wants to do something nice for his friends. They sort of push it off, and it's nowhere near as good as Brian envisioned it would be. He'd been bottling up all his feelings for so long, blows his gasket, and vents some hard truths at his friends.
And I don't ask for crap from any of you! Wow, Ted, be more needy. Make this more about you. You are the most selfish—
Okay, Brian, let's go.
No, you know what, it's fine. I'm out of here, forget it.
The fallout afterward is incredible. His friends realize that, yeah, they screwed up. But Brian also went way too far. Ted still holds a bit of a grudge, and rightfully so. There's no way you can be word slapped in the face as hard as Ted was and still be okay. Yes, Ted is all the things that Brian said, but the way Brian did it was so uncalled for. And that's what makes this show and Brian's character so damn good. He goes beyond character and literally becomes a real person. Everyone has experienced things like this. He may be experiencing things that you never would, but the relationships he has are just as real as any. His go-getter side is just as compelling. He works his ass off for the things that he wants. He's the kind of guy you wish you were more like. And even though he may get downtrodden from his own failures and mistakes, he has enough confidence and pride to stand up for himself when he needs to. Brian is honestly such a deep character. While also being one of the most self-insert protagonists I've ever seen, he's relatable and identifiable. I don't know a single kid who watched this show back in the day that didn't want to be him.
Brian, you are literally living every 16-year-old boy's dream right now. You go to a video game high school. Your smoking hot girlfriend wants to have sex with you, and for some reason her mom is cool with it.
You're right, that is pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty damn awesome.
James Dean is 1,000,000% right. Every 16-year-old would give anything to be Brian, especially when it comes to Jenny. Jenny Matrix is the perfect fantasy. She's insanely gorgeous, played by Joanna Brady. She's smart, charismatic, and she can kick your ass at any game. I had an enormous crush on her at the time, as did just about everyone. Yet she's not just the pretty face for the show like many other female protagonists. She's got an incredibly unique but very real character arc that many people can relate to. She's a fighter by nature, similar to Brian, but probably even more so. She is very inspiring and a great role model to boot. She has dreams that she fights to achieve, and by the end of the series, she does reach her goals. She had to sacrifice many things to get there, including a relationship with Brian, but she did it.
I love you.
Side note, I also love how Jenny and Brian don't end up together at the end of the show. It deepens both Jenny and Brian's characters even more. Not to mention that it's incredibly realistic. Very rarely do high school sweethearts actually end up together. High school relationships seldom last, especially romantic relationships. While working as hard as she did, Jenny also had to deal and overcome the fact that her mom really wasn't a great mom. What a hard story to tell, yet it's done in such a powerful way. Jenny deep down always knew this, but it never really hit her till she was asked by her mom to prepare a speech for her when she was winning the Mother of the Year award. I know, it's incredibly cliche, but it doesn't matter. It's perfect. She breaks down when she realizes that she has nothing good to say about her mother, who was never really there for her. Her mom's an absolute jerk about it all the whole time, by the way, really driving home Jenny's feelings. Luckily, they're able to eventually talk it out and they start to build a proper relationship. This unfortunately can't be said about Ted. Ted also grew up with a terrible parent. While Jenny's mom wasn't great, she did still care about her daughter. Ted's dad hated him, and he made it known how much he didn't care for Ted.
Be careful, because if you don't give the people what they want, then they'll divorce you, they'll take your sweet dirt bike, and they'll leave you with a no-good loser for a son.
The story breaks my heart. The whole idea of a parent not caring for their child is incredibly painful to me. My parents are honestly amazing, but I've seen so many people in a similar boat to Jenny and Ted, and it hurts to know that it's not just a thing written for TV. Hold that thought. Before we go down that route, I want to talk first about the kind of person Ted is. Ted is a happy guy. He's physically independent, but he relies on those around him for emotional support. He's easily influenced by those around him for both good and bad. Throughout the show, much like he gains more life experience that helps him grow up. When Brian calls him out for being needy in season 2, he's of course hurt, but he also knows Brian's right. As season 1 Ted would have turned the other way and never talked to Brian ever again, but because of both his relationship with Brian by that point in season 2, and the fact that he'd grown up so much, he was able to look past it after some time processing it. And oh boy, what wonders does time, friends, and a whole lot of thinking do when you've got to process something heavy. Season 3, Episode 4 of Video Game High School is probably one of the best things to ever come out of YouTube. It's uncomfortable, moving, real, stunning, and more. In this episode, Ted's horrible father dies in a motorcycle accident. At this point in the show, there are so many other problems that each of the protagonists are dealing with, and then tragedy strikes. Everyone is already feeling like an absolute dumpster all at the same time, which in turn also makes the viewer feel like garbage, which is good, especially for the tone they are going for in this episode. And as they say, nothing like a tragedy brings people together. Because of this event, the group is able to fix bonds that had been broken, and they are able to come out of it better than they were. Awesome, great, cool. Now let's just discuss this episode for a bit. They start the episode shooting it like a TV dramedy to really raise the spirits and energy. They do this so that when they reveal to Ted that his father had passed away, it hits like a truck in more ways than one.
Your father was in an accident, and I'm sorry, but he died. We should call your mother.
Shut up.
Honey, no one expects you to understand how to feel right now.
Okay. Whose turn is it?
It's gonna be okay, man.
The tone and emotion do a complete 180. It's no longer the happy, funny show that we've been watching, it is serious and it's depressing. The scene where they tell Ted is so well done, and the acting, with a hint of amateur, is superb and performed with heart, emotion, and power. The whole scene is awkward yet fitting, and perfectly captures those moments in life when you are told or had to tell someone about something that impactful. As the episode proceeds, you watch Ted as he goes through the stages of grief. It's incredibly uncomfortable watching Ted joke around about his father's passing with dark humor, but wow, is it fitting for his character. Along with the cast, you feel that awkwardness ooze through the screen and into your own atmosphere. You are an outside observer to this strange and fascinating situation that they're all in, and watch as they all begin to cope with it. Ted is lost in his own mind, and he's just not sure how to feel. He knows that his father was an absolute asshole who never cared for him in the first place. That fact is brutally thrown at him throughout his whole life, but more impactful when they watch the tape of his will. Key even openly says that it was a good thing that he died because of how terrible he was to Ted. The emotions are incredibly tense the entire episode and finally boil over with Ted breaking down, still not being able to fully comprehend his feelings for why he cares for and loves his dad, even when he was such a terrible person and father his whole life. This show is special, a significant, memorable, noteworthy show. It's a product of its time, and it still is just as good as it ever was. And I've still got one more thing to talk about. It would be criminal to talk this much about Video Game High School without mentioning the Law. The Law is the whole reason this show got going. He's the #1 FPS player at VGHS, a shoo-in for the pro circuit, and everyone loves him. One day, Brian takes him out in a match and is then invited to VGHS. The rest is history. The Law was there from the beginning and here at the end. He's this conniving villain with all the power in the world in Season 1, he gets dethroned in Season 2, and joins the main cast in their path to finding a meaning in life.
$3? You polo shirt wearing dickbag, I paid $50 for this game.
I understand you're upset, sir. Would you like to... Unfortunately, the rules are the rules, but if you want to exchange the game for anything in the store, $5 store credit, I can do that.
No, I don't want store credit. I want my money back when I get on my skateboard and get out of this hellhole.
After losing pretty much everything he had in Season 1, he clings to anything that makes him feel powerful. He makes life hell for Ted and Brian to get a taste of that control he used to have. When he gets a hold of the game that Key made, he gets addicted to it till he finishes it. A sort of meta commentary on the self-insert protagonist, which is ironic because the game he plays is a retelling of VGHS Season 1, and he plays as Brian.
Oh, yes! Woo! I'm back! No one can beat the Law except the Law!
Oh, dude, Law, put some pants on, man. Make an effort. Do something.
Never!
He finds some sort of stability with ShotBot, but that was short-lived. He leaves VGHS with an offer to become a top player at a rival school, and in Season 3, he is promptly stabbed in the back by said rival school. As the ultimate gut punch, that rival school makes a new Law to replace him, beginning a power struggle for the rest of the season, which is also a potential meta commentary on how in the end he was always just fighting himself.
My, what a big gun you have. Your mother must be so proud of your big gun.
Also, New Law is played by Freddy from iCarly. There's actually a ton of crazy cameos in the series, showing even more just how big of an impact this show had made on the internet back then in the early 2010s.
Tony Hawk, you're really good at skateboarding.
Thank you.
VGHS really felt like the crowning achievement of YouTube back then. Having only been a website for roughly 7 years, there was plenty of content, a lot of which wasn't half bad. But VGHS was even better, and not just back then. Few shows capture the same magic that VGHS did. Of course, it works even better if you went through high school during its release. It set the bar high for what it meant to be an outstanding YouTube video and web series. Rocket Jump was in a league of their own, and part of why I think it all worked so well was because it was a passion project for them. They loved making this show and often worked overtime to try and make everything work how they envisioned it. They definitely nailed it. Like I said earlier, this show was made and released during my high school years, which increased its appeal tenfold for me. Not only is it a peek into that era of nerd culture, it really is just a time capsule of my days in high school. From the everyday things to the constant video games. Setting nostalgia aside, it's just a really damn good show. If you made it to the end and you somehow didn't stop the video to go watch VGHS, do yourself a favor and go watch it right after you click that subscribe button. If you've already seen VGHS, let me know in the comments what your favorite part of the show was, or if you have any great memories about it. Thanks again for watching, and as always, keep it rad.